we begin to look at it in a wider context, then we'll understand, I think, a little bit more about our own attitudes to child molestation, to child abuse in Jamaica. So I'm asking the question this evening: child abuse, a culture of silence or a culture of acceptance? And so we want to find out what we mean when we say there's a culture of silence. We also want to find out what we mean when we say there's a culture of acceptance. And so to help us look at that this evening, we're very, very, very pleased to welcome back to Sexwise, a favorite of Sexwise, might we add, all decked out in her cultural attire this evening, Dr. Beverly Scott, who is the Executive Director at Family and Parenting Care and Executive Director and Project Coordinator and Child and Family Therapist at Family and Parenting Center. She's also part-time lecturer in developmental, abnormal psychology and other psychology courses at the International University of the Caribbean in Montego Bay. And she's a founder and executive director of the Family and Parenting Center. And you know, she has co-authored 3 handbooks. 1, Positive Parenting, Handbook for Guidance Counselors at number 2, and the 3rd book, Treatment for Children with Emotional Development and Behavioral Problems. In a little while, we'll be joined in the studio also by our second guest, no stranger to Sexwise, also one of our favorites who hasn't been here in the studio in a long time, but been on the phone on and off, Dr. Herbert Gale, anthropologist. He's also a lecturer in the Department of Sociology and Social Work, and he is chairman of Fathers Incorporated. So let me just welcome Dr. Beverly Scott to our studios. Good evening, Dr. Scott. Welcome once again.
Good evening, Andrea. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
And may I just say publicly that I love your outfit?
Thank you, thank you.
I told you that privately, but
yes,
you know, when you walked in, I just felt as if I was, you know, in Kumasi or Accra and just running into one of my sisters, you know?
Right.
So good to see you, good to see you.
I'm happy to be here.
Dr. Scott, serious topic.
Yes, it is. It is.
We're looking at, you know, I want to put things in perspective, and I know that to move the conversation to something that it seems, personally, my experience is that not many people want to talk about the extent to which we may or may not be accepting of sexual molestation, for example, or accepting of child abuse in terms of whether it's flogging or any kind of abuse of our children. That we have shied away to a large extent about talking about that, and we're focused more on the fact that people do not talk, people do not say when they see a child being abused. My question here is it that people are silent because they are afraid, silent because they do not see anything wrong with a child being punished in all different kinds of ways or being sexually abused? What is the level of acceptance? Now, you have been involved in this work for a very, very long time. So let us take it from the top and talk about when we say child abuse. Who is a child and what do we mean by child abuse?
Okay, thank you very much. By our law, a child is a person under 18 years old, by the Jamaican law. And child abuse refers to any form of physical, psychological, social, emotional, or sexual maltreatment or mistreatment of a child, where the survival, the safety, self-esteem, the growth and development of the child, all of those are endangered. Yes. The child suffers physical harm, emotional harm, psychological harm, neglect, sexual abuse.
So that within the Jamaican context, we've had, and you've been part of many of these conversations about the extent to which our children are being abused in Jamaica. When you reflect on this, what are some of the questions that you ask yourself about? And I know that you're also a policy developer. You're one of those persons who are sitting in that seat, implementing some of those policies and so on. But to get there, what are some of the questions you ask yourself in the problematizing process about where we are? Why do we continue to see this high level of abuse of our children in Jamaica, and why is it that we always seem to be talking about this and not getting the kind of results that we desire over a long period?
There are many people in high places who still feel that if you give a child a good spanking, that's okay. Mm-hmm. If you say certain things that belittles a child, that dehumanizes a child, it's no big thing.
Spare the rod and spoil a child.
It's no big thing. It's no big thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, spare the rod.
So what role does religion play?
You don't spare the rod and spoil the child. Religion. What role does religion play? I must tell you that some persons who really say they are Christians could be among the most abusive, because these people want their children to be perfect, and so they administered all different kinds of punishment, including spiritual abuse, telling the child that God will kill you if you do so and so and so.
So this is a very serious statement.
It's really very serious
that you've made.
Yes,
and it also goes to the heart. If we're going to solve or begin to solve the problem of child abuse in Jamaica, it means we have to. Our girlfriend who always say, Andrea, if you want to solve it, you have to take it out, put it on, look on it, call it what it is. Because not until you have named it can you determine what kind of remedy to apply.
Right.
So the diagnosis is important.
Right.
So here we are and you made a statement just now. You said that sadly Christians might be some of the most abusive.
Yes.
Among us.
Right, because their children must be perfect. They can't do anything that's wrong. And so quite a number of children rebel in Christian homes after a while because of the kind of abuse that's meted out to them.
I want to come to the flogging abuse. You mentioned spiritual abuse. Talk to me about this spiritual abuse.
Spiritual abuse is like, for example, saying to the child, the Bible says that if you do not obey your parents, you're not going to live long.
But many do not consider that abuse. That is like abuse. A warning.
That is abuse. That is abuse. Any kind of threat to a child is abuse. If you threaten to do the child harm, even if you have not done it, that's emotional abuse.
So it goes back to the question we're asking this evening.
Yes.
Is it that because somebody's hearing that and seeing that, he's not going to report that anyway because you accept in your community that is the way to raise a child?
Indeed. And
so that's a culture of acceptance.
Right. But what we need to do is to get the community to be aware, of what is happening and to report. And really listen to children who complain. Because children do not just complain like that. When a child complains about being abused, we should listen. We should believe the child. Because lack of belief will discourage the abused child from disclosing. We should listen. We should be calm. We should give the child full attention. We should put our children first. We should look at their anger. We should look at their frustration. A lot of children are angry. They're upset because of what they're going through. We should reassure them. We should be supportive. We should tell the child what has happened to him or her, and we should commend the child for speaking out.
So, all right, so that is what we should be doing.
Yes.
And to a large extent, from your own personal experience, which is wide and varied in terms of parenting in Jamaica, seeing children who are being abused, to what extent are we doing this? All those things that we should be doing as a nation?
We're just scratching the surface, I must say. We're just being aware now, because in the past we didn't see that as important. We felt that children were to be subjected to a certain amount of punishment so that they could be good children. But we find that punishment is not abuse. And discipline is not abuse.
So let us talk about that, because you have to discipline.
And you have to punish.
And you have to punish.
Yes.
So where do you draw the line?
Well, discipline helps the child to be obedient, to develop high self-esteem, to be respectful when you discipline that child.
But you're saying that there's a thin line between discipline and abuse.
Discipline and abuse, right. A child who is disciplined, if you have to speak to that child about what he's doing that's wrong, that child will come and apologize. But a child who is abused will rebel. You know?
How does a parent know, though, that, listen, here I am, and you know, I am accepting of the abuse. I accept this kind of punishment, this kind of discipline regime, this kind of punishment regime, because the Bible says so, because Pastor preached so, and this is how my grandmother raised me, and my great grandmother, never wrong with none of we. See, the Walla will come up here now, and the Walla will turn good. So I'm gonna raise my child in the very same way.
Yes, but that's such an erroneous argument, I'd say, Joy, because
okay, this is Andrea.
Andrea,
yeah, because you never call me Carbo, so go with Andrea.
Andrea, yes. Right, because many of us would be better people. Many of us would not be as shy. We would have higher self-esteem. You have people in high places that still do not know how to deal with their children and even their own partners.
Yeah.
You have people, wives who beat their husbands and husbands who beat their wives because of how they were brought up. And so so
there's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, there's a vicious cycle. And while you did not lose your eye, while your parents saved your eye, you believe that you were flogged and this is why you have come out to be what you are. You could be a better person in terms of your attitude, in terms of how you relate to your co-workers, in terms of how you relate to your own family, your own children. And while you're educated, there might be some flaws in your personality because you were abused. So we need to look at that.
Exactly, yes. And that will manifest in how you interact
deal with your own family,
your colleagues and with the family and stuff. Well, let us quickly move to sexual abuse of children. I have had, as you know, this program started in 1998. Do the maths. And one of the main focus of the program has been child abuse. We start incest, rape, the whole situation. We've had that, and I don't think a month has ever passed without us going back to that since 1998, because that the program was built with that in mind. Let us see what we can do to bring this to the public, the public's attention. But I have found, after having many discussions, both on air, off air, doing the research, talking to the men, doing the academic research and so on, that there are a lot, and I mean more so than I thought at first, of Jamaicans, men in particular, and to a large extent older women, who do not necessarily see the sexual relationship between, or the sexual relations between a 14-year-old and, say, a 35-year-old as a problem, especially men.
Yes. Well,
now, where did that come from?
I think it's tabooed, People do not want to talk about sexual abuse because it will expose the family. And so children suffer because families do not want to be exposed.
So you think that there's really a culture of silence?
Yes, there's a culture of silence.
It's not that the family has accepted it.
Right.
But it's that they do not want to be exposed. They do not want to be embarrassed.
Yes. And we need to understand that sexual abuse is any form of sexual conduct, touching, intercourse, inappropriate play with the child. Yeah, giving the child unusual sexual and sophisticated and unusual sexual knowledge. A lot of our children are just exposed to sex, pornography, all those things.
Yes.
Things like those.
What about the wider society? Because you've zoomed in on the family. What about the wider society? Where there are communities in Jamaica where You walk in and people tell you that house and that house and that house, and this has been happening forever, and that man's been abusing his daughter forever, and that man, and people know, and it is not, and they are not afraid of being exposed. The community knows, but the community is not saying anything. Is it that what is it then? Why is the community not saying anything? Is that generally speaking, the community has come to, whatever the degree of acceptance, have come to accept this as, it's another man molesting his daughter, or where does the silence that we talk about come from?
I think
What's
that
the root of the silence?
I think that now more than ever, the community is speaking out because of the law. The law has some teeth now, because if you know of cases of child abuse, sexual abuse, and you do not report it, you can be locked up and be sent to prison.
And then, Dr. Scott, and if you report it, let me just throw another thing in there. That if you report it, nothing is. You see, I have a problem. Because we're putting everything out there, let's just put it out there. My problem is that I have reported too many cases that have come across my desk then, as a sex-wise host, that have not been dealt with, where nobody goes to, where, for example, if you and I'm telling you the truth, where if you report it, say, on a Friday, the civil servants tell you that they are just about to close, depending on the time that you report it on the Friday. The offices are not open until Monday, and so nothing will be done between Friday, Saturday, Sunday, until perhaps Monday evening, and then not unless you call back and remind them.
Right. And this is why you have executive offices, executive agencies like the Office of the Children's Advocate and the Office of the Children's Registry. And you now have the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse, CISOCA, where you can...
But these are the people that I'm talking about. These are the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the CDA, I'm talking about CISOCA, I'm talking about... All these agencies are the agencies that I'm talking about. Is that if you report it 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then you are told that it goes over to nobody's here, and then nobody's not coming in until Monday, and then when they come out Monday, if you don't call and remind them, nothing is likely to happen. And then even when you have done that reminder, if you don't follow up. I have a few cases right now that I can tell you about, which I have to be calling every day to say, have you gone? Have you done? Have you? So that to me is a serious problem. So, for example, when we see the Prime Minister saying to young boys, saying to men, stop molesting our children, stop abusing our children, and saying to people, you have to report this, you have to report this. But when you report it, nothing is being done because civil servants are more or less lazy.
Call the police high command. Call the...
Remember, not everybody...
Call the Ministry of Youth and Culture.
Not everybody is Kabu Ma'at. I'm saying this because I might sit down on this because of my activism. But a person in the community who's seen this, who has made that one call, is not going to follow up.
Right. Well, I know that the Office of the Children's Advocate, the Office of the Children's Registry, CISOCA, the CDA, they're all multi-agency...
Yes.
They have all come together as multi-agency organizations to deal with particularly sexual abuse.
Yes.
And I know that they're on 24-hour call as we speak.
The CDA is on 24 hours?
Yes.
You lie.
Is it true?
Let me welcome Dr. Herbert Gale to the studio. Dr. Gale, good evening, sir.
The pilot was in Kingston.
Dr. Gale, did you know the CDA was on 24 hours?
I've been informed that it is.
Yes.
Since when? Yes.
Piloted in Kingston in about 2010.
Yes, it's been a while.
And being rolled out throughout the island. Maybe the parishes, say for example, St. Anne is not fully on board. But in Kingston, as we speak, if you call CISOCA now, a CDA person is available to deal with the child and to maybe put the child with a fit person and not off to the police station or the place of safety.
And then this is what the general country, the nation needs to know.
That's what we're moving towards.
Right. Really. So why is it that we don't know this?
Well, everybody knows now.
No.
I just told you.
Yes. And I wish everybody was listening to this. I just found out right here because I was told just 3 weeks ago,
yes,
when I made a call, that I called Friday evening, that people were leaving now and that they wouldn't be able to deal with this case until Monday morning. And I said, but this young lady is in a home where she's being sexually abused by somebody in the home. And you're going to leave that young lady in that home for all of this weekend until Monday. And I was told that there's nothing we can do.
They can do something.
And that was me.
Yes, because the system is in place.
I stand here too. That's just 3 weeks ago, if so much.
There's a multi-agency response model now in place.
Yes.
That comprises Office of Children's Registry, the SISOCA, the CDA, Victim Support, Office of the Children's Advocate, and they all work together within the 24-hour to deal with that.
It is good to know that, because at least it gives you additional information.
And it disclosure
that you can call. And then we probably need to get the CDA and SISOCA and so on back here to talk about some of those. All right, Dr. Gill has joined us. We're going to take a quick break and come right back with much more inside of Sex-Wise.
And it's a goal!
Here is Parents Take Responsibility, Break the Cycle. I've been looking at that theme. Is it also the Jamaican? Is it the theme for Jamaica?
Yes, it is.
Which cycle? It's an honest question.
We're hoping it's not the positive ones, right?
Yes, break the cycle. It's not finished.
Well, cycle of poverty, cycle of abuse, those things.
So they're taking that parents understand what they mean when they say break the cycle. Or somebody have to say that. All right, let's go, because I don't want to go there. Let's go. All right, Dr. Gay, so we've been looking at the topic this evening, and this is just my own pet peeve, actually, because I have just seen so much and heard so much and researched so much, which I think you'll be very pleased about over the years regarding whether it's a sign, is it that communities are really silent on child abuse, especially sexual abuse of children? And if it is that there's a silence, then what is the reason for the silence? Is the reason for the silence, part of the reason for the silence, and an acceptance of that kind of a culture, that kind of behavior?
Right. What we found is a high level of acceptance of abuse, to the extent where, when you do research in the Caribbean, juxtaposed against, say, Europe and the United States, what we define as child abuse in Jamaica is extreme child abuse. So even when you interview children and you're going through with them about, let's take the researchers who do surveys and ask very bland questions which are culture unfriendly. And they ask the child, have you ever been abused in any of the following ways?
Yes.
And the child says no. And you see, research methods is everything, and then you qualitatively ask the child, tell me about your experience with your parents, and you realize, oh my God, half of this is just abuse.
And then, but the child would not see this as abuse.
Because the child's definition of abuse is scars, if it is physical abuse, is rape, as in penetration.
Yes.
Not
fondling
right, or just
sitting on lap.
Right, and those things, you know what I mean? So it's the definitions they hear are narrow, whilst elsewhere they are stretched. And that is where the bans are placed. That is the problem, because I've seen a number of cases where if you're talking about physical abuse, mothers account for 75%, right?
I'm not surprised.
That's just the raw. Just the raw data.
Yes.
You know me. I'm not going to go around.
I know. Yeah, that's why we had to get you in the studio.
Right. And if it's sexual abuse, then fathers alone account for 40%. Father, stepfather account for 40%.
Right.
Mothers 20%. Aunts and so forth, and so forth. And so uncles, all the males put together account for about 70%. Right, I know we have a thing that thinks that all the males put together account for 100%, but it's not true. And Jamaica is becoming more sexually exploratory. So more and more.
Meaning what?
Meaning that the greater the tolerance for female on female sex and male on male sex, and I'm not attacking anybody, what we're finding is that it is in the family now. In fact, it is more reported in the family. We don't know if it was there a long time ago, but it's now more reported because it is more spoken about. So we can only measure what is verbalized. Right. So that is the situation. But that is the first problem that I have with child abuse in this country. The definitions, even amongst the practitioners, is still very narrow. Did he scar you? So we're still only looking at, and I'm talking about Jamaica, Belize, Trinidad, St. Kitts, all the countries we've worked, we found the exact same thing. It's really, really extreme. So getting a little bit of flogging and a little bruise on the ear red is not abuse. That's going to make you strong.
So what does that say about the Jamaican culture in terms of how the extent to which we accept abuse? And if we do not see this, if as a culture we don't see this as abuse, whose definition are we going to use to say what is abuse? In other words, is there an international definition for child abuse?
Yes.
Or do you define it within the cultural context of violence and mayhem?
Right. And I mean, on the one hand, whilst the American and international definition, we might find it a little bit too broad, because we have been narrow, and therefore we need to find some middle ground until we can get there too. The problem I have is that when you speak to a lot of persons over age 35, they tell you about how great they have become in life just because they get a whopping.
Well, yeah.
And listen to the word, it's a proper onomatopoeia now. It's a whopping. And they're very emotional about the benefits,
you know. Explain to people the onomatopoeia word, what that means.
It's a word where the meaning, you can actually hear the meaning in the sound. Yes. You know, whop. You know?
So what's wrong with this? I mean, if it is a whopping that you believe makes you into a better person.
But here's the problem. In research, if we don't have a baseline, we can't compare. How do you know what you would have become without the whopping?
Without the whopping, can you imagine? Wow.
How do you know that if you had got a bit more hugs and a bit more lunch money,
and then you wouldn't be so shy?
And then, Dr. Scott, it goes to what you were speaking to earlier when you talked about the extent to which persons are abused and how that abuse carries over into their
next generation. Yes, because remember, we transfer aggression.
Right.
I mean, if you look at, in fact, 100% of all the women I have interviewed who've abused their children sexually were abused sexually. So we transfer it.
It's a cycle.
It just goes on.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we move from here? And I suppose we'll come to that later. But I'm speaking about the level of acceptance as opposed to the silence. Do the two things work hand in hand? It's the acceptance that the part of this is that there's this level of acceptance that results in this silence.
Right.
If we do not get this as policy makers, of people who are going to legislate, aren't we likely to go very wrong in terms of the policies that we throw at this?
The policy is one thing, but you see, sometimes you try and put nice clothes on somebody who needs to bathe. That's part of the problem.
All right, talk to us about that.
because we quite often have policies, and the policies are quite nice. They've been adopted from elsewhere, but the point is that they're not culturally aligned. We haven't done the social marketing. You know, it's like a teacher who said to me the other day that from stop beating them, their grades go down. I mean, how do you now convince this teacher that, look, flogging is actually a weakness? It says that you have lost control, or you do not have the whole spreadsheet of methods that you could have used to achieve grades. And so I said to her, I sat down with her and I said, you know, these are all the things that I have achieved without flogging a single child. And I showed her all the methods that I use, and she said, seriously? Then them something at work? You see, she had become so dependent.
That would be methods like what? As opposed to flogging?
As in deprivation of, I mean, if for example, in one of my teaching experiment, as my other colleagues call it, I knew a young man had potential, but all he wanted to do was to run because that school had the record for the primary school at the National Stadium. And that's all he wanted to do. And it didn't matter how many times I told him that, look, something you can break your leg, my son, and all the different logic never made any sense. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, all right, it's simple. You don't get a B, you can't run. Mm-hmm. And you know, he made A's and he ran. Mm-hmm. And he set records. Right? But the point is that there has to be some what we call, you know, classroom management. Mm-hmm. People have to know that I have 10 options and, you know, flogging is not one of them. And I think when we get to that point, we'll simply achieve. There are many persons I know who've been taught to use other methods, and then they'll turn back and say, but you know, people stupid. And I'm like, okay, they're not really stupid. You have to be defending them because the person is almost like a person who gets a car. And the week before he gets this car, he's saying how the drivers, they're wicked and splash up people. And then he gets this car and he looks back and he goes, why the pedestrian can't walk better?
He's telling you about me. I'm joking. But we were talking before you got in, Dr. Scott or myself, and she made a point that it's still in the back of my head when she talked about the extent to which in Christian homes, you might find Christian homes being the most abusive homes.
Right.
They want their children to be perfect.
Right.
Even though Jamaica says it's a Christian society, we know the Bible is prominent in, no matter how wicked a person is, in how people are raising their children.
Right.
And so we get from time to time, and over again actually, don't spare the rod and spoil a child.
Right.
And that translates to the school, especially where you have a lot of schools in Jamaica. You have you tell me the numbers, but many female teachers, and a great number of these female teachers are also Christian,
right,
or at least God-minded. What happens in situations like those, in terms of the abuse? How do you then? This must call for some kind of a paradigm shift.
Right. The first problem I have, I don't have a problem with the Bible. I have a problem with the interpretation of the Bible, because much of Paul's work has been used to abuse women. You know, people, I've heard, I went to a wedding actually and heard of the pastor telling illustrating, in fact, to the woman the extent to which she must prostrate. let me use the word. She must subdue herself. And I mean, he had these words and he read it from 3 different versions. Oh. And I'm like, oh my God. So this is what the relationship is going to be built on. It's not going to be built on partnership. It's the same thing about parenting. Mm-hmm. We spend so much time finding a section in the Bible without context, without anything, just the raw little section that we use to poison people. And I've always said to people that gunmen carry Bible. So I am not impressed if you are drawing a line from the Bible without it having a context of humanity.
But Dr. Gail, you're not impressed, but this is what is happening.
Yes.
So how do we are we even able to get around this?
See,
how do you change this in the classrooms then, Dr. Scott?
You have to give them alternative, because they're so used to negative motivation.
Yes.
For example, negative motivation tells a child what not to do, but positive motivation tells the child exactly what to do.
So
you don't leave the child with another option. You have given the child a positive already.
Right.
So what are you teaching at the Teachers College level then? I'm going as far back as possible in terms of how you translate this to the classroom now. Because are you teaching that?
You have to teach it. You have to help the teachers to manage the classroom and manage the students.
But
you also have positive motivation. For example, validating the child, praising the child for what he has done right. And when the child does something wrong, you sit the child down and show the child the consequence.
And how do you fit that into the question we're asking, which is the Christian ideals and the Christian ideology regarding punishment and flogging and the rod and the child and the female teacher in the classroom who is Christian and who is really, really Christian. So, Dr. Scott, we know them, and there are many of them,
Right. Well, if they're Christians and they want to use the Bible, you can use the Bible. Right?
No,
Because,
it's not the Bible, no, Dr. Scott. It is what is now ingrained in you.
Yes.
Right. It's not what you are in terms of your own principles. It's what you have become, you know.
Let me help a little here. You know, I asked a teacher once. I said to her, she was quoting to a boy before she flogged him that, you know, even Jesus had to turn over the tables. And I said to her, there is a time, in fact, to turn over the tables, as Jesus did with the Pharisees when they were desecrating the temple. But is every single verse in the Bible about Jesus turning over the tables? She said no. I said, if the Bible should be analyzed, what proportion of love do you think would be found in it compared to what proportion of correction? And she said she never thought of it. I said, actually, it's a 2-to-1. The Bible has tons and tons of love. Who dare you find the 1/3?
Yes. Let me ask you, Dr. Gale. All right, so you said this is the one, teacher. I don't know if you see where I'm going, because I'm thinking, if this is not being done at the teachers' college level, and sometimes at the church level, I mean, when you go to church on Sunday, because you can't say one thing at teachers' college and then from the pulpit is a whole other situation. So I'm saying, how do you get to the heart of a culture that believes that you must flog the child to discipline the child, and sometimes the flogging goes beyond and above? How do you, and this is why I talk about the policies and the methods that I use and so on. How do you get
beyond the policies? What we're going to have is a social marketing. Jamaica is known for its very sharp J-turn. I mean, we can bounce. We can. I mean, two is better than too many. Two is better than too many generation. And it is still a shocker to people at all the Ivory universities. How is it that Jamaica was able to bring down fertility and almost make it, you know, distasteful and you know, repulsive for you to be having too many children? You're going to be Bev Brown, right?
A liberation celebration. Right side of Shaz gas station. Friday, August 1st, on the day of emancipation. Prairie Saint-Anne, from day to night, everything alright. Kiddies and African village. Storytelling, Jankono, 8 p.m. showtime, Iwi and Ezran, Bugo, Romeo and Virgo, Pise, Danai, Richie Innocent, Teflon, Rasta Life, and Ironite Stepper, Kilimanjaro music, Picnic 100, all foot is 1,000. Whoa, Liza, Kibayamouth, Purple Malaka, Wonder Music, MNF Construction, IRFM, Make Your Water, a liberation celebration.
It has stuck in my head that we can do anything at all we put our heads to. Now we could start a social marketing in this country that says, look, you know, this is how you really take care of a child. I think the problem is, and you speak to people like Janet Brown and those other persons, you find that we got a teacher's college to become a teacher. We go to school to become accountants and so forth, but we think that parenting is natural, that we just jump up and, you know, just like how a child can sleep and feed on the breast, and the child is in second stage sleep and still having food, that's how parenting comes naturally. I've heard such nonsense about parenting and how, you know, especially, and listen to this one, how for women it is natural, but because men are a little bit more distant, they have to learn.
Isn't that true, Dr. Scott?
You have to learn parenting.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think both have to learn. Parenting skills are learned. We're not born with them.
Yes.
So how do you learn them? Do you learn them from it? Because I think what Dr. Gale is pointing to is how a lot of women instinctively feel that you'll get it by instinct, but also through generation, from your mother and your mother, mother and your mother, mother and so on.
Like shaking,
we have to move
like
away.
Shaking the child. Remember that one? Shaking the child until the child have headache and migraine and all kind of stuff.
Right.
And singing, and shaking the poor pity.
Rather than rocking, you know, swaying, you know.
But let's talk about that.
I found out that once parents receive alternative skills, they use them.
Yes.
They use them.
So
what we need to do is get into the PTAs, get into the communities, introduce people to positive skills, non-violent ways of dealing with children. Because once you give them that and they get it, and they use it and it works, it sticks with them.
Yes.
So what we need to do is to change the whole culture. by going to the places where we can find the parents.
One brick at a time.
Yeah.
It's one brick at a time.
Yeah. Go to the PTAs, go to the communities.
Are we doing that now?
Yes, we are doing that now. We have a program where we have life skills for children who have emotional challenges at school, and we're dealing with over 400 for this academic year. Today we had about 50 odd children coming to the center for help. And we do not work with the children unless we work with parents. So we work with the children Monday to Thursday. And on Fridays we work with parents to give them parenting skills. And they're grabbing
and parents are coming.
They're coming. They're coming and they're taking the skills and they're working them, and children are saying, my mother is treating me better. And mother is saying, the boy is behaving better. So it's working, and this is what we have to do. We have to work both with the children and their parents.
I know that we don't have the children's advocate here at the office here, but it's a month-long programming, and we've been doing that over a few weeks actually. But what do we know about the numbers in terms of reporting? Are we seeing a change? Is it like a change for the better, or are we with all the different things that were put in place recently, the website and so on, people reporting child abuse?
I think there's a change for the better, and people are more aware. Parents are more aware of how they treat their children. Parents are, as it were, interfering into other parents' business. They're protecting children. They're defending them. They're reporting. One of the reasons is that they are afraid of the law. Once you know something and you don't report it, and somebody knows that you know that you might have a problem if it was said that you knew before and you didn't do anything about it. So I think they're reporting more. They're more aware. Parents are treating their children better generally from where I sit, and parents are coming forward for more help with their children. And
yet, Dr. Gay, we heard recently, I don't have the story with me, maybe Joy can find it for me, where coming out of hospitals where there was a report of the underage girls who were giving birth in the hospital system or turning up at some point, and that a majority of these were pregnant for much older men. And so we're still getting that. The gynecologist was in recently talking about, probably 80% of the teenagers, 13, 14 teenagers being pregnant for 25, 35-year-old men.
Right, but we have to be a little bit careful with that, though, because there's a lack of logic and common sense with that. And I want to take you back to some work done by Professor Barry Shivans and myself for the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation, because it never made sense to me that older men, especially married men, were getting teenagers pregnant. Even as a child growing up, in my late teens, when I heard these data, they never made sense to me until we went and did the research. The bulk of any girl who gets pregnant will be they'll be impregnated by their peers. All right, so 4 to 5.
And this is what our statistics are showing?
No, I'm telling you.
I'm asking you because we have had that discussion over and over in this space.
I'm telling you what is logical and what I know to be so.
About the research what
right,
you do.
Right, I'll speak from what I'm certain of.
Okay.
Right, the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation study would be 1, 2, 3, done 3 different times and found the same thing, and that's for me is triangulation. Those who do a one-off study, good for you, right? But why it makes sense is that if a male is mature, he doesn't really, and he's having a relationship with a young girl, he doesn't really want children, He's not having a relationship with her for the purpose of having children. He already has a family, and he's having
at 25.
No, I'm saying
because the ages we're hearing is 25.
Right, but I'm going to come to that. I'm going to come to that quickly. Right, what I'm saying is that Jamaicans have this myth that it's men in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and I've even heard people saying, "Why is them all 60s there?" The point is at that age, at the age of maturity for men, once most males after they get past 35 and they have a family and they having a relationship with a younger person who is not their main relationship, they are mega careful. So that's the first thing that never made sense to me. What we're finding, remember, who is not their main relationship, they are mega careful. So that's the first thing that never made sense to me. What we're finding, remember, the same set of studies done for the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation have found that most girls are attracted to a male in Jamaica 6 years older. That was the magic number we found. So if she was say 16, she's not going to be interested in a male. I mean, her greatest attraction, as was found in the study, is going to be start from 22. So this is what is happening, because her maturity and her demands, right, does not fit with her peers.
Well, that's what I said. Well, not 22, but 25, because I'm saying as the gynecologist and curative that was in, he talked about
those would be considered to be young 25. Men.
13, 14-year-old girls.
Those would be considered to be young.
But they're much older, so
they're significant. All right, let's. We have to use some research words now.
Yes.
They'll be significantly older.
Right.
But remember, there's a stagger matchup between males and females. Okay? If you had a niece who was, say, 17, and you saw her talking to a 15-year-old boy, that's a major predation on the 15-year-old, you know. Because her maturity matches up with a male in the 20s.
True.
That's just the reality of how we were neurobiologically wired.
15?
No, I'm saying a 17-year-old female.
17, yes.
I'm using numbers outside the 16 to make everybody feel comfortable. I'm saying if you have a 17-year-old niece who is having a relationship with a 16-year-old male.
50, yeah.
Let's use 16 to be safe, so nobody jump up and get in the spirit, right? I'm saying that she is robbing the cradle big time, you know, because the 16-year-old male is not matched with her any at all. So
17, 16?
Yes, they're not matched any at all. If you look at the development of a female, even from birth to 5 years old.
We can't agree with that, you know.
No, stay with me.
17, 16?
Stay with me on this. Stay with me. It may sound like they're peer because they're in the same class. But reflect on when you were in high school.
That me, I know.
Right. I can tell you. If you want to get anecdotal, I can tell you that when I was in high school, right, I was 2 years younger than everybody else. Right? And when I made an attempt to say hi to the girls on a social level, all their interests would have been with me is the fact that I can help them with their assignment. They have absolutely no other interest because in terms of my chemical development, I'm 5-6 years off. I mean, remember, the female body is designed to get to a point rapidly, right, of maturity for two things. Remember that females do production and reproduction. Males are into production. We can't reproduce. We only assist. All right? We always send the gene print, and of course women have to be trained by socialization and their wiring in pre-selection.
Because I think it's the very same argument that those who are going to molest the children are flipping and using, because we hear them. Right? That the girl, you know, she young, but her body this, and you know, she might say she has 15, but her body look
But
good.
remember,
and this is the same argument.
Remember though that there are the facts and there are the manipulation of it, and so we have to begin from a point of knowledge that males and females do not grow at the same pace. We do not mature at the same pace. Our brains are not the same, right?
And the big man need to know that for stop molesting young girls. Kind of sex-wise, this evening we're talking about child abuse. It is Child Month, and once again we revisit some of the issues that we deal with year-round. The theme this year for Child Month is Parents Take Responsibility, Break the Silence. And we're talking this evening about silence or acceptance. And we're looking at the reasons for the silence, if the silence still exists. And one of the questions we're asking, is it really a culture of silence in Jamaica as it relates to child abuse, or a culture of acceptance? In the studio, Dr. Beverly Scott, Executive Director at the Family and Parenting Center, and Dr. Herbert Gale, Anthropologist and Lecturer in the Department of Sociology and Social Work. Dr. Gale, also from Fathers Inc. Dr. Gale, so one of the things that we know you do a lot is talk to fathers.
Right.
And we can well imagine that men generally might feel that there's a stigma when it comes to child abuse in Jamaica, that, you know, big man molest girls, and people just say that. I mean, I did it just now.
Right.
So what are fathers saying about this, and what are I don't know the extent to which Fathers Inc. has a voice. I know you've got that voice, but in terms of reaching as many fathers as possible, as many mothers and the media as possible to change change the thinking.
Right.
What is Fathers Inc. doing, and how are you managing?
One of the things we're focused on is reaching boys before they become fathers, because quite often when the horse is halfway down the track, it's kind of difficult to run him and lasso him with cowboy rope and all them dramatic things. But I want to clarify something very quickly, and then we're going to get to this. It's this matter that between 15 and 24 years old, a human being is considered to be a youth. All right? And between 25 and 34, they are young adults stroke extended youth. So sometimes I see headlines about big men. We can't use the word unless he hits 35. All right, so I want Jamaicans to know.
And I think it's
that.
a good point you make. Even when we talk about, I remember having to call, and I had this discussion with our news director recently, but it wasn't about sex. It was about a headline that I saw in the paper about young men who are now taking up the gun, and this whole thing about young boys.
Right.
And I was saying to Franklin, I said, what if we change the language? Because if this is coming out of Africa, for example, we would have said that these were child soldiers.
Right.
Why don't we say child soldiers in this case? Because these are children.
Right.
Right. So I think the language that we use.
As a researcher, I have to be precise, and that's something that I've said to people. The point I was making before we close was the neurobiological difference between males and females. The fact that women basically have a 6-year head start, and that women in what is called pre-selection. Let me just break this down quickly and get to the question. The fact is that because women don't carry the gene of the species, men do, women carry the ability to select the best gene to carry the species forward. So the youngest little girl you see already know that boy was an idiot. She has a working idea.
I think you're right on that one.
And can tell you, that one is not going nowhere.
Yes.
And it's a shocker. You think, oh my God, how brilliant. It's already wired in her. So, what have we been doing at Fathers Inc.? Our focus is getting boys to understand themselves. And one of the things we've been trying to get into the heads of boys in terms of fatherhood is that from research, all the churches, Seventh-day Adventist Church of God and a few others, who've managed to get their males to have first sex after age 18, they have been less vulnerable to HIV, better able to understand women, and very important to the men, and I hope they are listening to this one, they're less likely to be sharing out all their lunch money and hungry every day, yes. And turn claffy. Yeah, I'm giving a full thing. The longer a male, claffy in this context is that the tons and tons of males were now very concerned about who have saved everything to give it to a girl, and then now there's war because the girl actually have no interest in claffy. She's actually interested in somebody who's more sensible. Yes. and believe me, that accounts for over 30% of the teenage interrelational violence we're having, that we're seeing all over the place. Really? Over lunch money, over a 21-year-old go hustle and bring it come, and they don't have a relationship. A whole lot of madness. What I'm saying is that we found that the boys who start to hustle and start to move money around and think that they are a man from pre-puberty up to 16, 17, we find that they have major crises. And one of the things I want to point out is that people must remember some of the cohorts of data that of stuff we looked at have shown up to 60% of males in those early age having first sex with a female who is between 6 and 25 years older, including mother's best friend, auntie. I mean, some weird stuff that you'd never believe. And those boys have very damaged relationships with women. When they
it is one aspect of the abuse of children that is not talked about much.
Right.
Why?
And you know what is funny about it? Because we see sex as a female problem. We see sexual abuse as a female problem. What we do not see is the sense of balance that an abused male becomes immediately the perpetrator and victimizing not just one female, but a whole bunch of females. So when you save one boy, it's like you're saving, on average, and I'm giving a very precise term, 6 females that he's going to relate to. Mm-hmm. That's only the average, you know. And the international average is not even Jamaica's average, right? Yes. When you actually get your son to delay sex and to have a working idea of what's happening in his body and to treat him like a human being, and he gets involved in a relationship after 18, you're talking about the 6, on average, females he's going to relate to sexually in his life will be 1,000 times better off than a guy who have issues and chip on him shoulder and a bad man and you know. And that is what, because I keep hearing about a Jamaican dilemma where we want to patch up females and then send them home to an ignorant man. You know, how does that work? It's more child abuse, it's more sexual abuse, it's more of everything if we don't see this balance.
And then it goes back to what I was asking earlier, that if we don't, you know, my girlfriend said name it. If we don't diagnose it, if we don't call it what it really is, if we don't look at it and as you have done and as you continue to do, and say this is the reality, regardless of everything else that you hear, this is what we're seeing, this is the trend, this is the reality, and then address that reality more than pounding the pulpit and saying this dude, you know, I mean, because this is what I see happening.
Yeah, Andrea, here's the big question.
My name is Carbo.
If we have a male having sex first, and I'm not even using the word debut and all of that, first sex at 15, and which direction, what are the 2 directions he's going to look? He's going to either pool money together to find a part-time prostitute, and using the Jamaican word sketel, for the international listeners, part-time prostitute. They're going to pool their money and have sex with her, which is what is done, which is what every research we've done have found.
Which is what they're doing.
Right.
That has reached our attention. You're just as most of this program.
And that carries a mega nightmare of problems. Or
this is a common thing.
Yes. Or he's going to have sex with a girl that he can impress who would be 11 or 12. Because remember, a 15-year-old male genuinely cannot impress a 15-year-old female. That is why I introduced that issue about the differences between us. So in other words, one of our core objectives is to make males understand that you have to delay sex, because if you don't, remember Jamaica, we've not yet become accustomed to a condom called junior condom, you know.
What is junior condom?
The small ones.
We've not become accustomed to it.
I'm saying that even the concept of a junior condom irritates our fragile masculinity.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So any direction at all a 15 or 16-year-old male having sex goes, he's in trouble. And immediately the females around him are in trouble. So if we're going to talk about sexual abuse, one of the core problems to solve is to educate our males about what is happening and to make them a part of the equation.
To what extent is that happening?
Oh boy, I tell you, what we're, despite all the work, and I've said to people, you know, if there's a bridge and people need to cross it, all you can do is guide them across until other persons create other bridges until the whole place gets flooded, yes, with positive vibes. What is happening, we're finding, is that the Jamaican parents still have the double standards, quoting from Janet Brown and Barry Vance. Me loose my bull, you tie your heifer. And this is what we've been doing. Rather than treating both of them as human beings and educating them as to their bodies and who they are and their purpose and what sex is about and so forth, we still have this thing where the boy is a loose bull, but the girl is supposed to be tied up. You see? And this imbalance, I'm not suggesting that a male can be tied up, you know. All right? Don't want anybody to misquote me. I'm just saying that this massive gap and double standard that we have is impacting both boys and girls negatively, because we know for sure that the girls who get a limited amount of freedom develop confidence and independence and then understand how to say no. We know that when you tie up, we know, everybody knows that when a Christian bossway, she bossway like BG kite.
True.
Because she's overly tied up.
Not me, but
So there's a lot of work.
But it's true. Yes. But what are you seeing, Dr. Scott, bearing in mind what we just heard Dr. Gale says, because you are at the Women's Center, so you're seeing the girls coming in.
The Family and Parenting Center.
Yeah, the Family and Parenting Center. What are you seeing?
We need to remember, Andrea, that we have sex education in schools. And
it's different now from when we were going.
Yes, right. And all of these things.
Family life
education, right. That's right, yes. Understanding their sexuality and things like those.
Yes.
And we have programs that are life skills programs that are going around now that include sex education, sexuality management, and things like those. So we have come a long way in things like those. Yes. Our children are exposed to so many things on television and in the media and all of that in terms of sex. And so I believe that parents should really try to go ahead of their children, try to learn something more about what is happening in the sex world, because our children know so much about what is happening in the sex world, sometimes much more than their parents.
Yes.
So I think parents should be open to their children, Look at these things. You see something on television, call your child, discuss it with your child, ask the child what he or she thinks about it. And I think that's a good way to start,
Yes.
With parents really, getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Because if they learn at school, if they learn at school and they go home and at home it's truncated.
Right.
That's the end of it until they go back to school. Or what they learn at home is contrary.
Right.
Because I heard a father the other day telling a child that Pepsi do magic in my youth. And I'm like,
can you imagine?
Well, I can't do what Pepsi is saying today, but like doing some magic. They have some ingredient in Pepsi now that is causing some serious problems. And I hear them saying today that they're asking people to be patient while they withdraw it.
Yes.
Right.
But I'm saying that there are today parents who still believe in the old Pepsi and nail trick.
Yes, I know, that's what you were saying.
That's serious. Yes. I mean, I hope they didn't hear you.
In 2014?
They didn't hear you.
No,
I hope nobody heard you.
They need to reel and come
you know
again.
what I'm saying?
Yes, I don't want them to know, Dr. Scott. That's why I'm not asking for me to change the subject and then go right back there,
But it can't. It's nonsense.
But parents really need to educate themselves in terms of, their children's sexuality and how to manage and to deal with them and to, talk to them about it and so on. Because parents are the best persons to teach their children about sex and sexuality.
We want to take
so they need to really learn themselves as how to, really discuss with their children, what to say to them and so on. And they really, it comes back again to parenting education.
Yeah.
Which is now available almost everywhere, we're understanding.
Right.
All right. We want to open the telephone lines at 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. And my producer just handed me this. I haven't read through it, but I'm reading it now. Obviously, I think it's connected to the conversation we're having. The Office of a Children Advocate has received reports of 22 cases of sexual exploitation, including students and school staff, since the start of this year. And head of the OCA, Dan Gordon-Harrison, says the 22 sex reports involving children and school staff is more than the number of cases reported in the last quarter of last year. She says between October and December 2013, the OCA received reports of 14 cases. The Children's Advocate laments that adults employed at schools in varying capacities, including teachers, are engaged in sexual grooming of and sexual intercourse with minors in their care. She says some people who have knowledge about the incidents are not reporting them or are actively protecting the perpetrators. Mrs. Gordon-Harrison says she finds it alarming that persons who are supposed to be of good standing are protecting the perpetrators of sexual acts involving children in order to preserve the reputation of a school or the offending staff member. For his part, Jamaica Teachers Association President Dr. Mark Nicely said the association does not condone sexual predators and called for speedy investigation of the cases highlighted by the Children's Advocate. They were speaking at an awards function hosted by the Kingston Bookshop in Kingston yesterday.
It's important for people to know, though, that 1 year, call it 2013, you can have 14 cases, and in 2014, you can have 22 cases, and 2014 is a better year. Right? It sounds paradoxical, but it means that more people are reporting, and that can go on for up to 6 years before you begin to see real data. All right? So don't jump up and get into the spirit.
Yes. It makes a lot of sense. All right, let's go to the telephone lines. Hello, caller, good evening. Welcome to Sexwise.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
On the topic where just a while ago. I think it's the right topic the doctor talking about.
You think what?
It's the right thing the doctor talking about.
It's the right thing that the doctor talking about. All right. Which one of the doctors? Both? Are you talking Dr. Gale, what he was saying just now about men, boys and girls?
Yeah.
Okay. What especially?
You realize it's serious thing. You see, most of the kids them know you have some like you have started a teenager of them kids, so them around 30 or 29 and they have them kids they are like 12 or 30. So most of them need to take care of themselves. So that's why most of them things happen.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Do you understand the point he's making?
He's saying that both parents and children should not be youth at the same time.
Too young.
That's a law against nature. Meaning that you should not be.
Yet grown up.
We completed our study.
Thank you, caller.
A couple years ago where we found 3 generations of youth.
Yes.
3 generations.
30 odd year old and you have grandchildren.
Yes.
But what does that say? You talk about
other than the Lord soon come, you mean other than anything like that?
Yes, other than Jesus soon come. Yeah.
It means that family is in crisis, and it means that there should have been state intervention long ago.
Long ago, because there are more 3 generations.
3 generations. You can't have 3 generations on their youth.
Yes.
So do you think that there's from where you're sitting, is there anything in place to stem that, to address that?
We found the case and immediately we got help for them, because the truth of the matter as researchers, you're not to be intervening too much.
Yes, we hear that a lot, but unlike you as a researcher, because you can't help but intervene.
No,
yes,
I mean,
that is the kind of research
three sets of youth.
Yes. Let me go to
intergenerational.
Our context is different, unique. We're going to researcher when we're done. Hello, caller. Good evening. Welcome to Sexwise. Greetings.
How are you doing?
We're well, thanks.
Dr. Gale.
Hey, what's up, man?
How are you doing? You not talk to middle class talk. about parents must tell children about sex and teach them.
So that's middle class?
A middle class argument, that now gone. You know, talk like, children have their own room and all them thing there. You understand? I'm doing about 5, 6 in a one room, parents and things have to go on. And
the children have to take turns to go outside when one exit come in.
And those in there, you hope that them are asleep.
Yes.
Yes. So what parents are going to tell children?
That's the reality.
They've already shown them down.
Yes. What parents are going to... That's a middle class thing with the children.
Yeah, did you know...
but it's not everybody living in that situation. I mean, a lot of people living in that situation.
No, I agree, but the bulk of possible those who you want to reach might be in that situation.
No,
a lot of them. I don't know. I'm not
okay, all right. Go ahead, Doctor.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, because we... Belize, St. Kitts, Jamaica, we've seen... In Belize, they call those houses dog sit down. Meaning that it's only big enough for a dog to sit down.
Belize, so many things happen by here.
All right. Anyway, don't want to laugh at the people's poverty. But if people live in a dog sit down or a shack or like a 1-bedroom.
Cool.
All right. One of the things that we've always had to say to these young people when we have them, because we're always going to have them, right, is to transcend, is to get beyond. Because if we go back to a study in St. Catherine, the popular St. Catherine study, what we found, the children said they had two 2 cases against their parents. The 2 biggest cases they said they would take the parents to court for. Having sex and making too much noise and then can't sleep. Can be playing domino with that child and win the game and turn to the child and say something like that.
Yes.
Right? Or the father lose a game. Right? This is what we observed when we were doing the research. And turn around and tell the children, right? To do all kinds of lollipop jokes. Right? The issue is that these children, if they don't have mentor, one of the things I've been pushing in this country is mentorship and apprenticeship, similar to what is in Germany, right? Where every single child who is from that type of background has an opposing framework, right? As in a positive framework to compare to that which they have, right? And I can tell you, every time you adopt one of these children, they tell a boy, listen to me, Herbs, me nah pour now. There's no way me can pour. Because if I so poverty tan. Right? And I mean, some of these kids...
But they go through some struggles and some suffering.
Right, and I'm saying that you can't change them. You can't change them. You can't change them by changing the parents, because those parents themselves need to be saved. If you look at the Force Right report, you'll see that over 15% of the children in that report said that they are the ones who are parenting their parents.
Yes, I read that report. I remember.
Those are the settings that you're talking about.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Caller, thank you for calling. And as you hang up, Dr. Scott, so the point the caller made is a very good one.
It's a very good one.
Yeah.
So what happens in a situation like we heard Dr. Gale saying, so obviously you need intervention there for the parents themselves, and then you talk about mentoring and the opposite framework, the alternative framework for the children in a situation like that. But on the ground here in Jamaica, what is being done when we come upon situations like those, which I'm sure are many?
One suggestion I have is that when we come upon situations like those, it's usually the children who come forward first. Right. And we shouldn't deal with the children unless we deal with the parents. Right. So we get an opportunity to now deal with the parents. And sometimes in some schools it's almost mandatory for parents to participate in programs that the children are going through.
Let me ask a question. What is the role of this Social Development Commission? I might be way off target, but I just want to know what...
I think the role of the Social Development Commission is more with community development and dealing with at-risk youth and programs like those.
At-risk youth would be a youth in a home like that?
Yes, in a home like that. But more older ones.
Let me tell you why I'm asking, because I know the SDC usually know every nook and cranny in the community where they are.
They do.
Right. They have social maps.
Yes, they do. Yes. And usually we refer to them for when we want to get into communities and so on for data and all of that.
Right. So I'm wondering why is that is the children who are coming forward first?
It is the children who are...
workers would have...
The children are more...
What happened? The children are coming forward because
the social workers.
The children have to interact with other children and they get in trouble. They get in trouble at school. They're taken to the family court. They're taken to CDA and so on.
I understand that, and I know that is a reality. And I'm just asking, where are the social workers? Do we have social workers?
A lot. Quite a lot. We have social workers in CDA.
Right.
We have social
and the Social
workers
Development
in the courts,
Commission.
in the Social Development Commission, right.
Still need more, but we're getting places.
Right. And I think they're much keener these days, to look at children's rights and what's happening to children and to fix what's happening in the homes and so on.
Right. Well, let me stop asking that question before my producer come here, come knock me over my head, because that's what she's studying.
Right. There's more what we call a multi-system approach rather than just dealing with the child in isolation.
Right.
I think we are more dealing with families now, which is commendable.
As a matter of fact, I think the program next week will be... or the week up will be co-produced by the social work lecturer at the Monique Teachers College, along with Joy, and I suppose we'll go there because I think it's the next topic. We take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Mama, you alone, so I
Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good night.
Hi, go ahead.
Hey.
You're live, you're on air. Go ahead, we're hearing you. Turn the radio off. I can hear your radio in the background. Turn it off. Yes, turn the radio. You turn the radio off?
I never know I was live.
Yeah, man, you're live. Go ahead.
Good night, my darling Carbo.
Look here. Good night to you, too. Yes.
It another place, the old place. It calling for the period. Come and really pick up on what the topic was of the night.
What you calling for?
Just to say, if I can't say anything, is that the way your name is?
Yeah, it's
Cabo.
It's Cabo, yes.
Cabo. My name is Simon still. My name is right here.
You know that chat about chat.
All right. Make it get back to you.
Yes, Simon, thank you. Simon called me more like a real. You have all a yawn? Like, oh, in a bed. All right. Thank you, Simon. As we continue to take your telephone calls, 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. But because we're in the last 15 minutes or so, let me just talk about, I always like to talk to the parents. They are normally up at this time listening, and we don't want to leave people hanging. So now they've been listening. Now they, a parent might be saying, so where do I go from here? What do I do? Because I haven't started doing anything yet, and I have a teenager, or I have a young child or a young boy. What do we say to parents now in terms of child abuse, what to look for, how to prepare? Sorry, I'm stepping away from the mic because we want to go to, let me go to the phone lines and come back. Hello, caller.
Perfect, love, greetings.
Greetings, my brother. Go ahead.
Give thanks for the program one more time. Good to be here.
Yeah,
sex. We are dealing with a issue that, sex is we know what sex is about, and it's human being we are dealing with,
Yes.
And you see the situation. Give thanks to all the efforts that being made, but we have to get to the root of the thing.
What is the root?
Just a while ago, we hear the song mentioned about state involvement. Yes, the honorable guest you have made a mention about state involvement, about maybe making something compulsory, whatever to kind of remedy the situation.
Yeah.
No, we have to get to the root of the thing,
Yes, let's get to the root because we don't have much time.
When we have a system set, right, whereby sex is seen as being trivial, seen as being like put like a taboo, like whatever, everywhere except being what it is. When the system, the same state and the same church together said to tell the whole world, not just inhabitants of Jamaica, but this is the world thing, tell the whole world, marriage before sex. Sex is a sacred act. What the church and the state did, is turn earth inhabitants into sexual zombies, and give thanks to the few who escaping it.
Let me get you, my brother.
Yes.
Let me just get you right because we've had these conversations from time to time in terms of your view of sex. All right.
I am saying
as it relates. Hang on. As it relates to child abuse, the point you're making is what exactly?
As it relates the same child abuse. The child abuse. I am specifically talking about the sexual abuse.
Yes.
Good. And we are saying that people who are perpetuating these things, these people have been set into sexual zombies from a system that was put in place. And then science seal delivered saying sex.
Can we reverse? Can that situation be reversed in terms of sexual zombies?
Of course.
How so?
The same church and the state. Of course it can be reversed.
Yeah, how so?
The same church and the same state.
Should do what?
The same church and the same state.
Yes.
Must admit that it is an error. And in the meantime, I'll set it right. And in the meantime, people must regain the consciousness to know that sex is what put sex in the context where it belongs.
All right, okay. Hang on. Let me just give my guests a chance to respond. I don't know if they're picking up on what you're saying. Go ahead, Dr. Scott.
I'm wondering if he's saying that sex is thrown at our children in the church and in the state. I don't know if he's talking about people talking about sex in church or what is on the television or so on, I don't know.
He's saying sex itself
is
marriage. In other words, once you have had sex, it's a sacred act. And
it's a sacred act. And are you saying that our children are too exposed to sex?
No, he's
everyone exposed to it in the context that the state and church has placed it. The church and state have belittled sex and put sex in a category as that, like it is nothing. And so
is it nothing or bad?
Not sacred. Not as sacred as it should be.
Is it nothing or bad, my brother? What are they saying? They're saying it's nothing, or they're saying it's bad. It's a sin. What is it? What I'm trying to.
Almost like a sin, and it is like a taboo. It is like belittled. It is like nothing. When the church and state have said categorically and set a system in place to say marriage before sex. Sex is marriage. When a man and a woman lay down and have sex, they are getting married, and that is the principle. That is why one woman to one man. Let everyone have that consciousness. There will be no such thing to these things.
All right, thanks.
The church and the state has embedded a sex zombie consciousness.
All right, but listen, my brother, you're shouting. There's no need there's no need to be shouting like that, because we're hearing you very well. Dr. Gale wanted to respond. Go ahead, Dr. Gale.
Right.
It's a serious situation.
Okay, I can't respond, my brother, unless. All right, let me go ahead. All right. I was saying that that position is a little bit late, though. Because remember, let me give you a little bit of the data, yes? 42% of Jamaicans live in a family form called couple family, meaning that the child has a mother and a father living in the same household. 24 out of the 42 are married and 18 are not married. So what the international community know, they've dropped the word nuclear, okay, my brother? And they now use the word couple, meaning whether you are married, yes or no, it's accepted that the child has access, that is, live with mother and father in the immediate surrounding. All right? So what I'm saying to you is that the zombie thing is not as bad as you think, yeah? All right?
It's not as bad as I think.
Yeah, the zombie is less zombie now than 20 years ago, all right?
It is less zombie than 20 years ago.
Yeah, man, we're getting places, all right?
So the situation as is.
The zombieism is not so bad anymore. We're getting places, all right?
All right, my brother, thank you very much as usual. Have to go.
Cool.
All right. Let's talk to the parents in these last few minutes, and let me go back to you, Dr. Scott, in terms of what we say to parents who are listening tonight about child abuse, about parenting, about what they can do, and the options that are open to them.
Right. The first thing is prevention. Yes, and this can be achieved through a variety of support programs. You know, we have the Early Childhood Commission Parents' Places in different communities all over Jamaica, where parents can go and get parenting education, you know. So they can go there. We can teach parents how to deal with their own emotions, because quite a lot of times when we have child abuse, it's parents who are overwhelmed with all the things that they have to do with work and home and finances and all of that. So parents need to know how to balance work and school and church and home, and, you know, to treat their children in a way that's reasonable, you know. Right. School PTAs are there, and many parents who most need to be spoken to least go to the PTAs. So we're encouraging parents to go to the PTAs.
Try and make it to the PTAs.
To the PTAs, because quite a number of sessions are held with parents at PTAs, teaching them parenting skills and so on. And I think the PTAs are more useful these days than ever. And so they should attend the PTAs.
Although a lot of them have now turned into fundraising activities.
Yeah, right. But let's hope
that's what happens. Let's hope that. Yes.
The media too. Here, is very key. Educational, highlighting things on parenting, giving tips and hints and commercials and whatever it is, and the song that you play and that kind of thing. Can help
we're very concerned and very aware of our own responsibilities here at Iron. I know that the media generally in Jamaica seems to be doing that now. Hey, Dr. Gale, it seems that the media has really understood.
Yes. Community members need to be more aware as well too, and report incidents of child abuse. Neighbors need to be very, very aware of what is happening next door. And if you suspect something and you're not sure, it's best for you to call and get help. And you do not have to be sure. Just a suspicion is enough for you to report it,
But if they don't, one of the things I always say to people is to establish a good relationship with your neighbor. Because if you have a bad relationship with me, you can't trouble my business,
Yes, right. Okay. And then when a child reports an abuse, it needs to be assessed carefully. We need to listen to our children. And we need to believe them and believe in them,
Listen to the voices.
Listen to them. Because children are not going to tell you something if something is not wrong. They might not tell you the right thing.
But there's something
in it. Usually something that you need to investigate, right? And
all right, well, let's go to this call. Hello, caller.
Hello, Cabo.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. I've been listening to the program all night.
Yes.
And I like the reasoning.
Give thanks.
I like the doctor, the male doctor, Dr. Gill. His perspective is a real thing.
Yes.
Because the reality is this: how do you tell a young girl not to be attracted to somebody that's older than her when she have needs?
When she have needs?
Yeah, because she's going to womanhood and she's in poverty, as she calls it. She's in poverty. She has need, and she wants more things than what her parents got to offer her.
And what do you do in a situation like that when a girl is underage?
Well, I've not been in that situation. My thing is,
what am I? Because you asked me, how do I tell a girl? So I'm asking you back, how do you? So what happens? What should happen in a situation like that when a girl is underage? Because she have needs. She's in poverty and so on.
That is the reality that we see. She grows up in a home and she has financial needs, and she goes forward and she starts to look for a mate compatible. And then the guys, as Dr. states it, they're not mature. Most men in Jamaica are not mature until 35 years old. No, we act mature, we might look mature, but we're not. Ask us a couple questions, theoretically we don't know. So until we reach 35, we really don't know what we want.
I had some very mature boys in my class when I was in high school.
No. They act old, but not mature.
Nice mature.
She went to good school here.
Nice mature. nice mature boys. Right?
I went to Kingston Technical, and I was with a lot of them. I played football. And I tell you, our mind was not on what we wanted to become. I mean, maybe 30%.
So what should we be saying to boys then? Because I found that I had at one time I had my nephew living with me, and when he finished high school, because now he was moving from being age 16 to being age 17, and I sat him down and had a good talk with him about the law and what it means now about having a relationship with an underage girl, and talk to him about sex and all of that. And a lot of this is not happening in the high schools. I know that the boys are not necessarily being told that. We've had programs around that too here, Dr. K, because a lot of young boys do not know
the law.
Yes.
No,
and
they're right.
It's important.
We have personal contests.
Yes.
We have personal contests to see whose chest is bigger.
Yes.
To see what?
Who can get the most female, or who can solicit the most.
Yes.
These are the contests we have as males.
Yes.
We are not taught that the female is sacred and that we should find one partner and be faithful. We are taught that, man, you know not done nothing last week. You know not nothing last month, and that gives the male a complex.
Yeah.
He has lost confidence in himself, and he doesn't think that being with one female is a confident thing. You hear that song by Kiprich saying, "Who tell you to be a one burner? We are kill yourself." These are the culture that we have.
Two sets of things happening.
All right, Dr. Gale wants to respond to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, two sets of stuff happening there immediately. One of the things that we were discussing earlier is to make sure your daughters have a mentorship frame around them. And I'm appealing to parents who are in situations where they actually do not know what to say to their daughters. Find an aunt or some relative or a church brother, church sister who you can trust. Right? Mark you, remember you have to be careful with the word trust, but I'm just saying you have to find a mentorship frame around your children. When it comes to the boys again, the boys who have to tally up girls, so that's the word we use, them tally up, right, are the boys who don't have other options. Because the more options you provide a person, you know, is the more the person can sit down and say, "Boy, I may have 10 things to use today. Which one are you going to use?"
Can I tell you what we need to do right now in this country? We need to form by the community. There's no community. There's a bunch of areas and garrisons, but there's no community. There's no leadership to look forward to. There's no meeting where the boys know that, okay, after school we could go down there and learn a trade because it's the community center, we're going to learn this, and the people are responsible. Your kids come and we drive and say, "Oh, look, how come I didn't see you down by the meeting place last week? Oh, what's going on now?" There's none of that. Nobody responsible, nobody. I know my business. My business about him. I pay business that money.
We're losing our sense of community.
We're going to leave it at that. Thank you, my brother.
Rebuild.
All right. Very, very good point he's making there. Yeah, about rebuilding the community. And he talked about the community center. I remember a few years ago when we were on the In Search of series, that one of the proposals we sent to, you know, one of the biggest funding agencies in Jamaica was about the community centers and what IRFM would do. But we needed funding to get the community centers back on track. You know what we heard 2 weeks after we submitted that proposal was that government was going to do it, and which means that then probably should just take the proposal and say they're going to do it. And they haven't done anything about it, right? We actually did 2 community centers and did not move any further because they said that they would now do it. So politics came in play. But I think that one thing that has broken down in Jamaica, and this is where people see them social responsibility, corporate social responsibility and others, but every time you step in, the tribalists step on your toes and take it over. The football matches, for example, in the communities that we build in the community centers. We know individuals and groups in communities who have gone into communities and started football matches, you know, for mentoring young boys. And politicians come in and take it over, especially during election time. What do we do, Dr. Gale, in situations like this?
Well, let me just begin by encouraging schools to have Boys Day and Girls Day. I've been told it's rescuing a lot of our children.
That's what they're having.
Right? And I've always said to people that, look, politicians will politic. You know, let them do what they're doing on the left, you do what you're doing on the right.
But what happens when they step in and take over stuff like what we saw? I mean, we have a lot of cases of that. With the program finished now, I can name you at least 10, me alone, where politicians step into a project in a community that is being done by the people and make it a tribal situation. So people step out of it.
People shouldn't allow that to happen.
How do you stop that?
You
can't stop that.
I've been through that, you know.
The women at Mango Valley couldn't stop that.
Step away and start again.
Right. Wow, you know. But we don't want to leave on a negative note. But we need to call out the politicians who are doing this, I think. And to say, we see you, we see what you're doing, and this is bad for the community.
Yeah. Let the community have some autonomy.
Yes.
And let them have some backbone and build. Yeah.
So, Dr. Gale, what are you saying now to the mothers and the fathers? Here, you're loud and clear. What message for mothers?
Well, I've been saying to mothers, you know, that look, you know, try and be close to your children. Don't take it for granted that because you're the primary nurturer, you know everything. And I've been encouraging health centers and so forth. See if you can get some sponsorship to create a little DVD that when people come to prenatal clinic, honor and go back to community. Yeah,
true. And one of the things you said, one of the first things you said on the program this evening, you talked about, you know, the fact that we can do it, and we did it before with like two is better than too many. I mean, that was a brilliant campaign.
We're the boss.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
So we yes, we can, right, Dr. Scott?
Yes. And what I say is that parents can go through the schools. The schools know the resources.
Right.
And if parents have problems, go to the principal. There are a number of places that the principal, or the guidance council. There are a number of places that you can be referred to, so that you can get the skills.
And learn with your children about themselves.
You can get the skills.
And have fun learning about that.
To treat your children.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We want to wish everybody all that's well. Happy Teachers Day for tomorrow.
Yes.
And a wonderful Child's Month for all our children.
And I just want to remember my teachers. You know, this is from high school. Mrs. Barbara Martin Kalash. She's now at Michael, I understand, and Mrs. Johnson. You know, you never forget the teachers who were there you know, I mean, that they were really, really there. And so I just want to say hello to them and thank you very much for having been there. And by the way, I'm still now, Mrs. Barbara Martin Kalash is still there every once in a while. She jumps out at me on Facebook. So, hey, thank you very much. Thank you for everything. You know why I'm saying thanks. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Herbert Gale. Doctor, you want to say hi to a teacher, Dr. Gale? You want to say hi to a teacher? Anybody? Yeah? Dr. Gale, you have plenty of teachers you want to say hi to. You want to say hi to a teacher?
Just hi to all the teachers across the country. You know, our marvelous
what
job.
The one that affected you when you were like a teeny tot?
Oh God, most of those are dead and gone.
I'd like to say,
that's good. You know, easy. You know, he's just 35. That's good. Yes.
I'd like to say hi to the teachers at Albion Primary and Junior High. I'll be seeing them tomorrow morning.
Okay, brilliant. Yes. All right. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Herbert Gale and Dr. Beverly Scott.